All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So today what I want to get into is basically that your life doesn't have to be as boring as it is. And I'm not saying everybody out there has boring lives. Everybody has amazing lives and everything they do and stuff. But the one thing that I've been I'm not going to say studying, but when I wrote a couple of my books, I really did a lot of research, obviously, on what I did in my past, what my friends were doing, people that I worked with in the past, and that goes for when I was younger, just trying to be a model, and then working with my father, being involved in the nightclub business and restaurant business, and then also becoming a part of the film community and television. I can't say television, I'd say more film, so I made a couple feature films and wrote a bunch of other screenplays. And so I think a lot of times when I would talk to people, they thought I lived this incredibly unique life, which I guess I did. But I think a lot of people live incredibly unique lives. Nobody has the same story. And the one thing that kept coming up is, my God, your life must be kind of so exciting, and it must be this or that. And the truth was, a lot of times when you're looking from the outside, looking in, it looks a certain way, but when you're inside looking out, it's an entirely different way, right? So if you look at a lot of people who make films, for instance, you think their whole life is, being on a set and being around all these creative people and doing all these things, which at different times it is. But a lot of it is really a constant struggle. But the struggle is what makes it interesting. But I'm not going to get into all that today, really. I may get into some of that stuff later, but what I want to get into today is like just the average Joe out there, or just people out there trying to live their lives and kind of falling into a rut. Because I don't know anybody who eventually doesn't fall into a rut. I think we all try to bullshit and pretend that everybody, even if they're extremely wealthy, are living the life of their dreams. Or even people that are middle class with families, that their life, it looks great again from the outside, and they got all the things they wanted. They got great kids, or their kids are doing well in school and they're doing great in their workplace. But if you start breaking down a lot of things, what happens, I think, a lot of times is it's not necessarily we fall into a rut as much as I think things just become boring. And if you look at life a lot of times, for the most part, it's a lot of boredom. And we also start becoming a part of a routine, which is great. A lot of people who do routines every day are very structured, become very successful, and I don't want you to think I'm breaking any of that down. I'm not. Whatever works for you, God bless. If you're somebody who has to wake up, immediately have a cup of coffee or whatever breakfast regimen you have, workout regimen you have, or work, or whatever it is, and you're structured that way and it works perfectly for you, God bless you. I'm talking about the people that actually want change or want something unique to happen in their life, not just once or twice. I'm talking consistently, which is kind of hard to do because I think a lot of times we've been programmed to be in fear of change constantly. And I think I'm the opposite of that. I understand that because a lot of times I'll wake up and have orange juice and oatmeal. But then from there on out, I never know how my day's going to turn out. But I'm so extreme the other way, it's almost scary, because if you know anything about me now, for like the last 10 years, I've done a tremendous amount of traveling. I blanketed North America numerous times, and I've also been to Italy, which was wonderful. And just for instance, tomorrow I got to go to Boca Raton for a couple days, and then after that, Wednesday, a few days after that, I'm going to Chicago for a week. Then after that, I'm going to be in San Antonio, and then I have to go to Vegas. So that's like in a month. Previously, last month, I can't even remember. I was going through my schedule, so I went to, I was in Canada, I think 2 to 3 times on separate occasions. Vancouver, I think Toronto twice. I ended up in Chicago. I did Texas as well, and some other cities or states that I can't even remember. Seattle, and Washington, Spokane, and then San Francisco. So I am kind of on the go. I am like the opposite of what most people live. And this is something that I gravitated towards too, because I get really crazy if things become routine. And I'm the extreme, but I'm going to give you some hints or tricks regarding what I do if you just want to switch some things up. And there are certain things, like I said, like breakfast, baby, and I mainly eat Italian foods. But for the most part, I am constantly trying to test myself or put myself in a position where I don't know what the hell's going to happen to me that day. And I like that excitement. And I really started to learn how much I liked it. Actually, I could say when I first started to work with my father, we went and started picking up money at all different bars we were in. So he did vending. So at the beginning, it was only like 15, 20 bars. Before you know it, you're in 40, 50 bars. Not only that, you're bringing equipment to different bars, which included nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs, all these different things. So every day was kind of an adventure, which is kind of interesting, right? It exhausts you too, believe me, especially back then with the smoke and the lifestyle. And we'd also service a lot of these bars till very late at night if they had service calls. So we had beepers, then eventually, very quickly, cell phones. But even after working all day, you might get a service call on one part of town at this bar, and then you might have to go to this restaurant, and you might have to go there, and then somebody throws you out. You got to go pick up equipment the next day, and then the next day you got in another new location. You had to bring equipment there. So it was constantly going on, and that excitement was fun. Not only that, I was living a lifestyle of hanging out in nightclubs after that. So it was from the minute I woke up basically to the to when I went to bed. But then I really wanted to just settle down and get married because my father owned the club from basically when I was like 2 years old or 1 year old all the way on up. And then I was in that business. And when I got married, I kind of felt bad because even my ex-wife, she wanted to do a lot of things. I was exhausted. I was like 26, I can't remember, but I felt like I put in 25 years of the nightclub restaurant business and I was fried. Absolutely fried. Loud music, I called it an audio assault. Like if I walked into a club or a live band or even concerts, I was at hundreds of concerts, which included comedians, and I just was like, if somebody even wanted to go out at night, unless it was like a fine dining restaurant or Italian restaurant, I just didn't even want to think about the crowds, the people. Not only that, I was around a lot of people who did a lot of drugs, partying, and drinking. I drank off and on, but I was always one, for the most part, who had to drive, and I definitely didn't want to lose my license because then basically there would go my job. So I had to be very careful and aware of that. Never into drugs. I liked gambling. But I was around all these different type of people, and I'm not here to judge them because some of my closest friends and family members, and a lot of them partied. They do drugs. They drank. They were crazy. Wonderful. But then as time went on after I got a divorce, because I think what happened with me in my marriage after a long period of time is I loved my children, still do. They're the focus of my life, but I got kind of caught in a rut. I was also making films, though, which was interesting is I was working with my father, part-time kind of, and then I'd be going to Chicago, and I'd be also making films, which was an unbelievable luxury to have that at that point in time. And I worked hard at both of them, and I kind of exhausted myself because I did 2 films back-to-back, feature films, wrote, directed, and produced them. And then I kind of co-produced a third one in Florida, and I burnt myself out. Along the way, I was trying to raise a ton of money. And that didn't work out, so I really exhausted myself, and that's when I started to work and start traveling all over the United States doing some photos and surveys, which was really interesting. So that's where I jumped into really not traveling a lot for a while, because I did travel in my 20s, and then I didn't for my late 20s for the most part, except if it was Vegas or vacations. Then all of a sudden I'm starting my 40s, and I went full throttle into traveling everywhere, including Canada, for long periods of time. And every day was, again, an adventure. And the more I did it, the more you would think everybody's like, how do you live this life? How do you live at a different hotel every day? How do you go to a different gym every day? How do you go to a different restaurant? And how do you keep up with that? And I just was able to keep up with it. And a lot of people were like, I love to do that. And then I would laugh at them because when they'd even go on vacation, if their plane was delayed or something happened, they would freak out. They could barely leave their house or their surroundings for like 2 weeks. I said, if you can't leave your own surroundings for a couple of weeks, how would you ever think you could do what I'm doing? And I'm not saying that I have more energy than they have, but the truth is they don't want that. They usually want to do, and I just literally went through this with one of my buddies. He's like, I'd love to do what you do just for a month a year. So he came to Chicago. It was actually a surprise birthday party for me, and they all showed up, which was great. And then they had to fly back. Their flight was delayed twice. He was freaking out. And he was only gone a few days. He had to get back to his son. He had work. He had all these things. I said, this is just a vacation, and you're freaking out, just like I mentioned earlier. When you live it, it's a much different experience, obviously. But he is one person amongst many others that I know too that they want change. Because again, life can become very boring. But you have to accept that you're boring. And a lot of us want to be bored. And bored, I don't think a lot of times is actually as bad as you think. Most people, when they used to think of me, I think making films, especially for a while, writing books and all this. And then I was living in California and Florida for the most part, kind of bouncing between both. And don't get me wrong, I was going to a lot of events in LA. I was on the East Coast a ton, New York, living, the East Coast kind of lifestyle at the same time, Florida. But I was in my 40s, and for the most part, I used to say you're going to find me in a few places. One would be a Barnes & Noble. I was either reading a book or writing a book, or an Italian restaurant, or in a gym, or in an airplane or an airport, or driving a rental car. I mean, that's really where my life was. And for the most part, most of the things I just told you are pretty damn boring, especially airports, airplanes, rental cars driving, Barnes & Nobles or Starbucks, and then the gym, which I don't find boring. But those are things that most people would maybe consider just doing those constantly be boring. But to me, the quietness and the boredom is where the excitement was. I think when people think about their lives, they think kind of my life is boring because I'm not doing exciting things. But I think what they're missing out on is they're not doing things they love to do. So, my friends, a lot of them will be like, I can't even keep up with you, even going out at night still to this, at this point in time when I was single, still going out too. But I wasn't a club hopper. I couldn't even stand clubs anymore, especially being born and raised in them. I definitely didn't want to sit in a bar unless somebody wanted to play darts or something. I'm not going to sit on the edge of a bar all day. But when it came to me, I realized, and this is coming from somebody who hated school actually, and I hated libraries. It took me a long time to figure out where I was excited the most was when I was creating. And I didn't have to just create a film or take something on that like monstrous, I guess you could say. Like that is, making a film is like a 5-7 year process. I mean, really from top to bottom, especially if you're going to write the script, get the funding, shoot the film, edit the film, try to get distribution for the film. And I'm talking an independent filmmaker. I'm not talking a Hollywood filmmaker. That I'm obviously not. So it's a process and a half. So when I did both of them back to back, I was kind of prepping for that. And that took me about 10 to 12 years. But it was a long time. And then I incorporated creating a video game into that and creating a graphic novel, which actually fell through. But I was creating all these other things as well while doing that, let alone going to film festivals and doing things like that. But I realized just by me and then writing a couple books and relaxing and saying, this is going to excite me the most. It wasn't just about waking up, running around, doing all crazy shit. It was just about me settling and saying, yes, at this moment or the next year or two, this is really what I want to focus in on. And that changed me as a person, I think, especially, I used to write screenplays. That's very dialogue driven for the most part. So you're constantly thinking about dialogue. But when I wrote my books, I can just kind of settle in and just write what I felt about what I knew about, or at least what I thought I knew about the most. And when it comes to people, I think a lot of times, again, they're bored because they're not doing things they want to do, is really what I'm trying to say. So if you always dreamt of doing, say, martial arts, jiu-jitsu or something, you were nervous about doing it, you still don't do it, that's something I think you should, try to go after. I don't care if it's taking time out to play chess. If you like chess, for instance, or if you're in Florida or in California, you like to surf, hike, or do certain things. And then if you do those things, which a lot of people end up doing, they find something interesting, then they kind of get in a rut with that. Learn to expand on that. Like, do other things as well. There's a lot more to you than just one or two things in your life. There's a lot more to you than just, obviously, when you wake up, a lot of people go to work. If you look at your job, you're doing a lot of multiple different things, I'm sure. And you're not just sitting there for the most part doing one thing. And if you are even in front of a computer, you're discussing different things with different people. You may be getting different emails, different projects, all these different things. But then when it kind of comes into their life afterwards, they'll go maybe not work out. Maybe just come home, sit on the couch, maybe eat, watch Netflix. If that's what you love to do, God bless. But there's a lot of things that you may be interested in, And instead of kind of watching it on TV, you may want to just start going out and doing them. Again, you don't have to be an extremist. If you want to learn how to play poker and you watch it a lot on television, kind of find some poker matches, as long as it doesn't financially destroy you. And then if you are interested in working out or doing something else different, do that. If you were just interested in going out, I think a lot of people just get in a position where they're just sick of sitting home. And I go through, like a lot of my friends, they'll go out only once a week or sometimes even once a month to meet me for dinner at some of our favorite friends' Italian restaurants. And they'll be like, this is the one thing I look forward to all month. This is the time I get out. I get away from the family. I get to hang with my friends. I'm thinking, are you in prison? Because even when I was married, I never felt like I was at prison. And I mean, if you trust one another, then you trust one another. And if you want to get out, get out. And again, I'm not telling you to go out and sit in a nightclub or go to a strip club or do something that you know is going to upset your wife or that damage your marriage. But if you're at a point where and I think this happens with a lot of people that are married in relationships, they don't go out because they don't want the other person to go out. Or they feel like if they go out, they'll be pissed that they went out and they didn't get an opportunity to go out. Or she's got to sit home with the kids all the time. And then I go out and then she's pissed. Or vice versa. I'm at home with the kids. She goes out with her girlfriends all the time and then he's pissed. I'm like, I mean, are we grown-ups here? You can alternate. You can still have a life with your friends. You could go out more than once a week or once a month. That's ridiculous. So I think these people put themselves in this position, and you don't have to, I don't think you need to put yourself in that position is what I'm trying to say. And again, I just think by people going out by themselves and doing certain things, and again, it could be even taking a class. So if you want to learn a language, just going to a local university or going to somewhere where they teach that language by yourself without your wife or without your husband, without your girlfriend, without your boyfriend, is a great thing. Learning to experience things independently, not where you're always in a position where you just have to go to work. And then you come home and you have to deal either with just strictly your kids or your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. And then you're kind of tied to the hip, Of course, and then you're both looking at each other like, okay, what are we going to do? Oh, let's go out to eat again. Okay, let's go out to eat. Okay, what are we going to do? A movie. All right, let's do a movie. All right, what are we going to do again? We're going to go by family. Okay, we're going to go by family. I think what happens after we do this year after year after year, of course, it's going to get boring. And again, if that's what you like to do, and that's what most people do, and I have nothing against that, you should do it. But I also think a lot of us don't realize or sit back all the different things that we are interested in and that we're just not doing it. And there could be things like, I know I have another friend that won't always take up guitar. I'm like, dude, go for lessons. He refuses to do it. He's scared. He's like, oh, I don't know. And then what? Then I'm going to probably end up, maybe joining a band. And then how's that going to work? I'm like, they're almost at the point where they're in a bar playing in a band. They haven't even touched an instrument. They're more worried about that ending than how about just learn the instrument? How about learn how to read music? And I think fear, we've got to get over, stop letting fear really control your life, especially when it comes to talking about something that will make your life brutally, I can't even say how boring it makes it, because before you know it, you're afraid to do anything, right? And you really got to just sit back and think, hey, what the hell am I truly afraid of when wanting to experiment new things? Is it my identity, or do I feel like maybe you have a lot of friends you do something with all the time, and then you'd like to make friends with somebody else to do something entirely different? You think you're turning on them, or maybe you're married or something, and you think hey, all of a sudden I want to experiment doing something different. She's going to look at me differently. And I went through that even making films, because I never made films, and then I wanted to make films. And then I took on an entirely different identity. I went from a guy who collected money and gambled to a guy all of a sudden, casting, writing, and making a film, which for the most part couldn't be much different. It was so different. Even my ex-wife had a problem with that identity after a while, because now you're with a lot of different type of people. Not bad. A lot of different type of women, men. It's a whole different environment. Then I had to shoot a lot of the film at night because I had kids during the day, so now I'm gone for long periods at night. I'm also casting the film, so I'm meeting a lot of different people that way. I was in Chicago, so I was going to Second City a lot, Improv Olympic, hanging out there late at night, trying to find different talent. My life changed. But at least I had to do that for myself. Because I once had a discussion, we were eating dinner once when we were in Florida with my buddy, and I had a lot of things going for me. My friend was like, you got everything going for you, but you're always like, you're stuck in a rut. Feels like whenever we're with you, you're stuck in a rut. And he really nailed it. I kind of really went after and accomplished a lot of things I wanted to go after. And then once I was done accomplishing all those things, for my own self, I wasn't like a guy who said, okay, I'm in real estate. I got to have, 1 or 2 homes. I wasn't the guy to say, okay, now I have to have 10, or I have to have 15, or I have to have 20. I was like, all right, I live here. I'm fine with that. I have this. I'm fine with that. I have the cars I want, and I'm fine. I have the jewelry and the clothes I want. I'm good with that. Then that's kind of when I fell into a rut. And I really wanted to make films my whole life. And then eventually I always wanted to write books, which sounds crazy coming from me. And then I always wanted to do a lot of different things. I didn't realize I didn't want to travel. But the thing I always realized about myself was I only wanted to travel to places I wanted to go to. And I still feel that way. It's almost self-centered. But then after traveling all over North America, I mean, you want to talk about being cultured or educated, I realized I couldn't believe how much I didn't know about people, different foods, different environments, different surroundings until you go live it. And a lot of places that I've gone to, I didn't just go for 2-3 days. I mean, I've spent weeks at a lot of these different places. If you talk about the East Coast, I probably, a year or two if you combined everything. Canada, I've probably been there, probably at this point, almost a year of my life. I lived at San Diego for almost 6 years. I lived at Florida. I lived at Chicago. I've lived there, and I also have visited these places for long periods of time, which is an amazing thing. So what I'm getting to, too, is if you want to start experiencing different things in your life, not just vacationing, because I know a lot of people do things, and they really only do it for vacation. I talk about that because I live in Florida, too, and people come to Florida all the time. And they really only go to Orlando, Florida, or they go to South Florida, which is great. But there is so much to do in Florida. There are so many different beaches. I even did a podcast with my girlfriend, Rhea, regarding all the best beaches in Florida. Hold on, let me get a drink here. I did some stuff in California as well, all the different things to do there as well. Not every state, but a lot of states have a lot of incredible things to do there besides just the tourist things. Do your research. And that could include, like, even a lot of places I go to. I even visit the universities. So I've been up, I don't know how many times I've been to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Chicago, for instance, all the Notre Dame. I've even taken tours at these universities, which, coming from a guy who never went to college, I just was very interested in, that surrounding and how wonderful it is. I've stayed in those areas. It's living it. And I think a lot of us are caught up now. We're not living. We're kind of either watching or reading, I guess. But I don't even think reading as much. We're on social media kind of either watching others kind of go to places we may want to go to, or we're watching Netflix, or we're watching YouTube. And we've kind of more and more became, I guess you could say, just kind of immobile to a certain point. And because more and more things, at least I can say, are surrounding me, that you don't have to go far to get a lot of things you want and have some unique experiences, which is wonderful. But if you are looking for really unique experiences, you should start considering traveling or even driving to certain places outside your surrounding areas. You'd be shocked probably if you even went 60 miles. And I'm not talking, again, like, say, Chicago, I'll just use for instance. Everybody just goes to Wisconsin Dells, for instance, or they drive all the way to Florida. There is a lot of the Midwest isn't easy, but there are a lot of other things to do. And I tell my friends that same in Florida. You can obviously go to Bahamas. You can go up to Georgia, New Orleans. And there's just a tons of different places in Florida. My friends a lot of them have lived here, or they're New Yorkers that never been to most of the beach towns. Again, they may do Boca, Pompano, Fort Lauderdale, or they'll do Naples, maybe Clearwater, Sarasota. That's it. A lot of them don't go up to the Panhandle. And there's a lot of things out there to experience, is what I'm saying. So I don't want to get too long-winded, but if you're bored in life, you got to start realizing there are tons of different things to do out there in your life. Tons of different experiences you could experience, even with your children, even if you're single, married. My cousin used to backpack, I remember in the old days, to Europe and Italy and all that. And I used to say, who the hell would do that? But now that I look back at him, and he's traveled all over the world, now I look at him, I'm like, wow, he knew what he was doing at a very young age. Like, he didn't just go. I used to just think people went to do that. I didn't know why they would go to certain places, and I realized, a lot about life is not. It's really about the experience. That's what you're paying for, and that's what we're all living for. If you're not experiencing new things, I think you're not stimulating your brain. You're not challenging yourself, because life, even if you're at home or wherever you go, it could be a restaurant, to a mall, to wherever you're going, you're paying for that experience. You pay for your home because you want to live in that experience. You have a certain car, may not be the car of your dreams. You paid for that car because it's going to give you a certain experience. Once you realize the experience, that you want to go after or discover is what you're looking for. That's what you're paying for. That's what keeps you going a lot of times. So just remember that it is all really about the experience in life. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you might want to check out my YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of different traveling, and I've been posting a lot of stuff more fitness related. So if you like anything regarding, I've been doing all different tours inside gyms all over North America, which includes Worlds, Golds. Actually, I didn't do a tour inside Golds or Worlds. I just did some talking inside there. But I've done LA Fitness, 24-Hour Fitness, Crunch. I just did Steve Nash. I do some independent gyms as well. So Good Life Fitness. And I also put up videos on there regarding my Mastering Self-Confidence program. So if you get a chance, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram as well. Please leave a comment, agree, disagree. And try not to be so damn bored if you are bored. Now, if you're not bored, God bless you. I'm just the type of person, I almost always feel bored, regardless. I could be doing something incredible and still be like, wow, what else can I do to make this even better? But again, I had to find what works best for me. Don't get caught up with what other people are doing, thinking that what they're doing is exciting for them. It's going to be exciting for you. And I just had a discussion regarding this, and I'll end it with this. And that is, like, if your wife, hypothetically, here's one thing: if you're married or got a girlfriend or wife or whatever, go with her to go do things she loves to do and have fun. You do it if you got kids. You do it for your kids all the time. But a lot of times, and this goes for the wives out there too, or if the girlfriends, take your husband to where he loves to go once in a while. I'm not saying you have to do it all the time, but if he loves to go to hockey games, surprise him, get him some tickets. He loves to go to, I don't care if it's a bodybuilding show, go there. If he likes to go see political figures, even if you may not agree, get some tickets, surprise him. Comedians. You both, in relationships, a lot of times you both know what each other loves, but a lot of times you either won't do it for them, or you don't like it, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Bite the bullet and go do it with them and surprise them. But here's the other thing. A lot of times, don't put all your, how do I say this? If you have a girlfriend or a wife, say, right, and you're just kind of following her, you're kind of a copycat dater, I call them, or a copycat relationship, where you think by doing everything they're doing isn't going to make you bored, but you're really not that interested in it, you are going to be bored. It's even worse. So you got to learn to live your own life. Of course, you want to do things with the other people that they like to do, but you have to realize you have things that you want to do. And even if people aren't willing to go do them with you, learn how to do that independently. And that would be, again, for instance, say learning an instrument. If you want to learn an instrument, that doesn't mean your wife or your girlfriend has to come and be with you when you're learning that instrument. Now, if she wants to learn an instrument as well, or the same instrument, God bless, if that's what you want to do. But if she, for instance, is a musician and you wrapped up your life following her around, which is wonderful, going to all her gigs or following her thinking, wow, this is great, I love this. And the reality is you go there and after a while you're bored out of your mind, especially during rehearsals, because I've been involved with those situations. And before you know it, you're like, how am I spending all my time doing something I really don't want to do? Acknowledge that. That doesn't mean you can't do it once in a while. But a lot of times we wrap up a lot of our freedom in what other people want to do. You got to learn what you want to do. It's got to be a balance. And I think a lot of times that happens. And I know we have to do that with our children. That's our children. A lot of times we're like, oh my God, I'm taking my kid to this game. Then she's got this after school, and then there's a rehearsal here and that. Boo-hoo for you. You're a parent. That's what you do. But when it comes to yourself, if you're not happy or doing things you love to do, what the hell is the sense of living, right? All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you're traveling, safe travels. Take care.